Helldivers 2 has lost 90% of its player base, but is this really a problem? I'm not really sure it is. Hello everybody and welcome to the channel. So this is kind of in the news at the moment surrounding Helldivers 2. That, yeah, look at this Steam chart. I mean, okay, it's got 28,000 players playing as of when this screenshot was taken. This is actually taken from Forbes because Forbes had one of the first articles up I've seen about this over the weekend, basically saying, oh, after great success, it's now lost 90% of its players. And you can see here, look at the graph. Big launch. We had the peak of 458,000 players, which is incredible. And then, yeah, there's been a slow decline. You can see there's been little spikes here and there. But basically, it's never, ever got anywhere near to the heights that it achieved when the game launched. And now it's, yeah, it's pretty much at its lowest it's ever been in terms of concurrent player count. And what I want to do in this video is talk about why that is, what are the pros and what are the cons of this, because it's a very complex situation. But before I kick off this video, I think there is one thing you should all be aware of, and I think you're all aware of this anyway. The fact that people might be playing a game less doesn't make the game bad. I mean, this game has been out since February. If you've played the game, you've got tons of enjoyment from the game, your enjoyment is not going to be stolen away by the fact that less people are now playing this game. In fact, it's only natural that people go and play other games anyway. And I'm not trying to defend this like, oh no, this guy has made Helldivers videos, oh god, he wants the game to do well. The game is doing well. But what I'm trying to say is try and, like, I don't know, be less reactionary when it comes to this stuff. This is a live service game. It's a game that will get updates, and when the updates come, I'm sure people will come back. And the ultimate positive to take away from this is there is a high number of players who actually own the game. So it is up to Arrowhead to delight those players, delight us, and bring us back with moments that actually intrigue us, because I don't think they've been particularly doing a great job of that at the moment. But I think we can break all of this down. So this was Johan over on Twitter back in May, and this was Sony confirming Helldivers have sold over 12 million copies. Now, to put that into perspective, Helldivers 2 costs $40 on Steam. Now, I know not all of the sales are on Steam, and I also know that regional pricing comes into effect. But if we just take $40 as the baseline and do a very simple multiplication of 12 million, that's $480 million in sales. Now, that isn't the money that Arrowhead have made, because you've got the Steam platform split, and like I said, there'll be different prices for different regions, and the PlayStation price and all of that stuff. There's the PlayStation deal, whatever that looks like, because obviously PlayStation published the game. And then there's what Arrowhead get left over. I mean, I think you could probably easily say this is going to be north of 300 million, which has been injected into that studio most likely. Definitely over 200 million. That is insane. That is actually insane. So essentially, they've won. Arrowhead have won. Even if the game now had 0 players and was never played again, Arrowhead have made a game, tons of people bought it, tons of people enjoyed it, and that was it. But, and this is the big but, Helldivers 2, it isn't a single-player game, is it? Yeah, let's get into that. So it's okay if you launch a game and you sell 12 million copies and you're a single-player game and people go through the content, they stop playing your game. That is natural, right? That happens to a lot of single-player games. And Helldivers 2 has sold 12 million plus copies. That is an incredible number. However, this was being hailed as the next live service masterpiece. The next game that was going to sort of, or Sony's kind of real big first in-house live service game. So what the hell has gone on here? Well, let's look at this. So I want to show this tweet first. So this account says Helldivers 2 lost 90% of its players on the PC platform. What is the reason in your opinion? I want to highlight this response. So it says, there's nothing to play for after you have all the ship module upgrades and samples maxed out. There's no reward for leveling past 25. There's no end game. And the 3 last war bonds have been underwhelming. Arrowhead isn't giving players a real reason to log back in. Okay, so we can also throw into this argument stuff like the balance. You know, there was some very bad and some very notorious balance decisions made in Helldivers 2, which is a PvE game. You know, like going in and nerfing the weapons, making them feel terrible. That does feel terrible, and that would have contributed to players not playing the game as much. However, this comment, and the reason why I wanted to highlight it, it's really interesting to me. It's because surely the primary reason to play a game is for the fun of that game. And yeah, the progression systems will keep you sort of engaged in the game, but it's mainly for the fun of the game. And I think what's happened to Helldivers 2 is it has become too... we've done it. We've done it now. That's the problem, right? So your gameplay is great, right? The weapon handling... I know, yeah, we can talk about buffs and nerfs and whatever. But weapon handling, the stratagem system, the way enemies, you kill enemies, you interact with enemies, the way enemies spawn. I think that's been fixed recently as well. The enemy design, it's great, right? The maps, yeah, they're great. The objectives, they're great, but they're not great 6 months later. Objectives, maps, and things like that, they really needed to get this. I think, like, hand over heart, I think my issue with the game, and I don't want to go out there and say this is everybody's issue, because I want you guys to comment below. But the reason why I'm not playing this game as much is because I've already played this game, which sounds absolutely insane. You know what I mean? It's like, what? What? Why would I go back and play a game like Overwatch or Apex or anything like that? Well, they're PvP. So you've got that element of like, okay, there's a bit more, you know, the games can be a bit different. This, though, it's PvE. You're given a mission, you go and do the mission. And you know what things are like? People get more efficient, they get better at the game. So when I look back at, like, I've got notes for this video, but I think it makes more sense if I just go crazy and just talk about everything. The game's too easy. This sounds insane to say this, but the game is too easy. If you have been grinding away on Helldive difficulty, you are now, you're too good for Helldive difficulty, right? Yeah, you might die a few times a mission, but you will complete the missions. It's fairly, I don't want to say it's rare, but it's not that common, but it's not very, well, it just isn't common that you're going to lose the missions, right? Players have got good. I don't know why they haven't increased the difficulty to give more challenge to players that maybe were looking for those kind of, you know, pushing the limits. I don't know why they haven't done that. Surely that would be as simple as just turning up the difficulty number, right? Let's go to 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. We know they did that in Helldivers 1. But I think that's only a small issue, right? I don't think that's a major issue. I think balance is a bigger issue than that. I think giving weapons to the player base that don't feel great is a problem. I think when I look at the Galactic War system, that, yeah, it started off really great. It was like, holy hell. Like, I mean, I've got videos on my channel with hundreds and hundreds of thousands of views. I mean, I remember the one where it was like, kill 2 billion bugs. Oh my God. And we actually did it. It was insane. Well, it turned out that it was bugged. We didn't actually complete it, but we kind of did because the game was bugged. But then guess what we got a few weeks later? Kill 2 billion bots. It's like, okay, well, we've done this. And I think that's one of the issues, especially with the Galactic War system, where you just kind of lose focus on what is actually going on, because it will be like, okay, we need to liberate Astanu again for the 3rd time this week. You know, that kind of thing. And it's like, okay, this is kind of boring. I don't want to do this again. And also, you've got that thing of some planets are quite annoying to play on because you might prefer other planets. So I know for me personally, the planets that have got like a load of visual effects, like, so you've got like heavy fog on the planet, or you can't really see very far, I think they're a bit more frustrating to play on rather than the planets that are a bit more open. That being said, though, the new jungle or swamp biome feels great against the bugs, because you get that fantasy of like, oh yeah, I'm like in Predator and I'm getting attacked by a ton of aliens. It feels fantastic. So there's pros and cons to it, but I think ultimately, when you look at the biggest reasons for why players are not coming back to the game, or why players are, it's not so much coming back to the game, it's like wanting to play the game. Because I think, remember what I said at the top of the video, they've got a lot of players, like 12 million plus people have got access to this game, notwithstanding the PSN stuff, which I guess we should kind of touch on. That would have had an effect on the player base, but I don't think that would have been enough to like tank the average players by, you know, 90%. That's quite a big drop. The reason that's gone down is just because there hasn't been any moments that basically thrust the players back into the game. There is one big moment that is coming at some point, and this is the Illuminate. When that turns up, that race, surely there's going to be some massive event, some big thing which happens, and that would bring players back. But this is what it needs. It's not enough. This is going to sound crazy, right? It's not enough just to add a new faction, which I know is a lot of work, right? That's got a lot of enemy types, a lot of, you know, all the way the enemy plays. You need different missions. We need different mission types. And I like to do this thing. It's like, it's a bit insane, this is, but it's like a crazy mental exercise of, okay, if I was in charge of Helldivers 2, what would have been, this is with the power of hindsight as well, so it's all rich me sitting here saying this, but what would you have done if you could do anything and you had the resources to do it? So the game launches, you've got planet types, you've got different biomes, you've got different missions, you've got weapons, right? This is great. But fundamentally, we're all doing the same kind of thing. We're playing on a big overland map. We're running around completing objectives. I know sometimes we might be, you know, sitting in one position and defending against waves of enemies, which was a thing, you know. So the eradication missions, they were okay. But then when we got the new sort of defense missions, they were awesome, because it felt like you were in Starship Troopers and you had the doors that you could close and the different layers of defense. But they were awesome a couple of playthroughs, then they kind of get a bit like, okay, well, we know what's going on here. It's a choke point. Maybe it's not as dynamic as the other types. But the thing is, it doesn't matter. It's still a decent game mode, and it was good it was added in. But the big point I'm trying to make here, guys, is that's it. And that's all we've had since the game was launched. We've had slightly different mission types. So we had the TCS, which was slightly different. And then we had, obviously, the whole development of that storyline, which kind of ended us going back to the same map, although it was heavily edited. With the drills were broken. That didn't feel great. People felt like, what's going on here? Obviously, we haven't really spoken about broken patches and being, like, unable to fix problems. That would have caused an issue with the player base as well. So I think we should talk about that to some degree, or maybe you guys can in the comments below. But the point I'm making here is the thing with the mission types and the levels. If I had the unlimited budget, imagine like with the bots, right? Let's just take the bots as an example. You could be like, right, so there's automaton facilities, and they're all over the map, and that's great, right? We've got those objectives that we could go and complete. But imagine if one of the maps was underground, and it was in a massive automaton bunker. What happens if one of the levels or the maps or the missions took place on an automaton ship, right? And you're fighting through their ship. This would feel like, wow, this game is really developing. Because I think what's happened is the game's just stalled. It's like, yeah, we've got this stuff, we've got this content, and their plan for new content is just to spam weapons into the game, and then at some point add the Illuminate. It's like, okay, but we need more. Like, it's going to sound a bit crazy to say this as well. And I know I am a bit rambly in this video, guys, but I think it feels, it's more from the heart, this is, if I do it this way. Adding the weapons is fine, but I think we've got enough weapons anyway. If you stopped adding weapons to Helldivers 2, I don't think anyone would care, really, if they made the weapons that we've got right now better on the overall. But I think most are kind of okay at the moment. You've got to give us new things to do. Why don't we have missions, like, again, to use the automaton example, let's just use the underground bunker example, where you have to fight through a bunker, and it's almost like a dungeon. It's not actually just a mission type like we've got at the moment, where there's all these different objectives you can run around. It's like you start at the start of the mission, and you are going through the bunker, and you are trying to take out an automaton mainframe, which is potentially controlling the bots in that area. That would be awesome, and you get to the end, there's a big boss fight, blow it up, off you go. There's none of that in this game, and it's really, really weird that that's not there. And I don't know why that wasn't their sort of main priority, because it feels like what they're doing is launch the game, got the content, then it's like, okay, our main monetization thing, because we are a live service game, is war bonds. So we just need to keep adding weapons into the war bonds. Weirdly, they nerfed all the weapons, then they added weapons, then they nerfed weapons, which just doesn't make any sense. Especially if they're premium weapons in the war bond. That does feel terrible, by the way. They since go back, and then they buff some of them, whatever, right? This is all minor stuff. But still, we're playing the same game. Then they go, oh, there's a new mission type, and you might have the silo, not the silo, the nuke nursery chamber thing, where you have to blow it up. But it's still fundamentally the same as a lot of the other mission types. There isn't really any different stuff happening in the mission. And then we hit a wall, and it's like they're not really adding the new mission types into the game that are varied enough, that are interesting enough, that make players want to play. Let's look at bugs as an example. Well, what could you do with the bugs? A similar thing to what I said with the bots. Yeah, in fact, let's just use the nuke nursery chamber as an example. They say there is a massive hive has been detected. Go down there, inject 3 nukes into it, and blow it up. Awesome. Why aren't we in the hive? In the hive. That would be sick. Imagine if you were in the hive and you had to deliver the nuke. Imagine if you had to pull the nuke through the mission, like on a, I don't know, some sort of like anti-grav tram or something. I don't know. It's futuristic. They could make it up and shove it into the middle of the nest and blow it up. That'd be friggin' sick. Why are we not doing this? They could be doing this, right? And this is the thing with this game, right? So we can talk about pros, we can talk about cons, we can talk about the why, but I think we should probably focus on the it doesn't matter, right? This game has got a massive installed player base. This game has just had their devs injected with a shit ton of money. So this should mean they are starting to gear up to actually give the content that the game needs to make it thrive. Now, this game is not dead. This game hasn't failed. It is, by every single metric, it has won. When I look at the stuff on Forbes, and it's like, oh, after initial success, Helldivers 2 has lost 90% of its players with no signs of recovery. I'm like, actually, there is all the signs there of recovery, because they have all of the tools available to recover. The question is, will they recover? But like I said at the top of the video, guys, don't, it doesn't really matter, right? Even if this game just, there was no one playing it, right? You've still got your fun out of the game. And that's what games are surely about, right? Go in there, have your fun. It's not going to take away from your fun that people are no longer playing this game. So I wouldn't really be too worried about that, to be honest. And I do have faith in the devs that, given the correction they've been going through over the last 2 months, they've got the new CEO, they changed the way they were adding content to the game. Hopefully, they will start to do things that make it more interesting to log in. You can go back to the Galactic War and go, it's not interesting, guys, to go, oh, like the current major order, it's like, oh, the Terminids have just spread the spores to these planets, go and liberate them. It's boring, because it was the same one the other week, you know what I mean? It's like, but you remember the major orders that were insane, like the 2 billion bugs, the first one. Oh my god, this is crazy. The major order that gave you the mech, it's crazy. It's like, oh my god. So they do have a lot of options, right? And I do think they can pull this back from the brink. I could go on forever about this, guys, but I do want you to comment below with how you feel about the state of the game. I think just to give a very sort of fast recap on this, I think Helldivers has given us something that we've not actually had for a long, long time. It is a fair live service game. It has got great mechanics. Like, honestly, the mechanics are great. The shooting feels great. For what it was, it felt really good. It obviously has run out of content to keep players engaged, but that doesn't mean that they cannot generate new content, and I'm talking about mission types here, to keep people engaged or bring people back. You know, like talking about the Galactic War stuff and the major orders, everyone knows about the black hole. You know, like that was a major story beat. So they do have that sort of potential to keep people engaged. All right, guys, thanks for watching the video. Let me know what you think about all of this in the comments below. I mean, like I said, I am not playing this game as much as I was before, because it's not that there's no point to playing it. It's because I've played it and I want to play the game, but I want to do different things in the game. Like, where are these Hive Lords? You know, there's all this stuff. Come on, Arrowhead, give us the stuff. All right, guys, thanks for watching. And yeah, leave a comment below, and I'll catch you lovely lot on the next one. See you soon.